Marka Ragnos is said to be one of, if not the greatest Sith to ever live in the Star Wars Legends continuity. But is that really true? Does he really deserve all the spotlight he's been given? I'm here to debate that today, and question the legitimacy of Korriban's golden boy, Marka Ragnos. Marka Ragnos, for those unaware, was a Sith who lived over 5,000 years before A New Hope and ruled the Sith species for over 100 years. For those wondering who the Sith species are, the Sith species was a sentient humanoid species from the planet Korriban, a desert world found deep in the Outer Rim. The Sith species had no association with the Force or the Jedi until a group of Dark Jedi who opposed the Jedi Council, led by former Jedi Master Ajunta Pall, landed on the planet after being exiled by the Republic for causing a war between the Jedi and Ajunta Pall's Dark Jedi called the 100-Year Darkness that, get this, lasted 100 years, almost 7,000 years before A New Hope. Ajunta Pall was able to become the leader of the Sith species due to his immense power, and was dubbed the Dark Lord of the Sith, the first person to ever be given such a title. The Dark Jedi interbred with the Sith, creating Sith-human hybrids that were powerful in the Force. The Sith were ruled under the Iron Fist rule of the Dark Lord of the Sith, who after the death of Ajunta Pall was always the most powerful of the Sith, who could rule over the Sith without having their rule questioned, or they would be replaced. This leads us to the man considered to be so grand and powerful that his death led to the end of the golden age of the Sith, Marka Ragnos. We don't know anything about Ragnos' early years. The first thing we know about him is that he became Dark Lord of the Sith by killing his rival Simis in a duel for the title by beheading him. Simis somehow survived, keeping himself alive in a jar, and after Ragnos learned of this, he promoted Simis to his own council. Over his 100-year rule, Ragnos would wage war across Korriban, conquering the planet under his sole rule and uniting the Sith. After 100 long years, Ragnos would pass away. Despite dying, Ragnos would continue to play a major role in Sith politics for centuries to come. Ragnos would return, as a ghost, to command his two possible successors, Naga Sadow and Ludo Kresh, to duel for the title of Dark Lord of the Sith. 1,000 years later, Ragnos would show up again out of a Sith amulet and promoted fallen Jedi Exar Kun to the role of Dark Lord of the Sith and Ulic Qel-Droma to his apprentice, despite never having met the two prior, not asking who they were or how they got into the situation, and disappearing as soon as his decision was done. Almost 4,000 years after that, Ragnos showed up in Darth Plagueis' mind randomly on his visit to Korriban, just to fuck with him, I guess. His final grand appearance in Legends was a few decades after his appearance on Korriban, when he was revived by Tavion Aximus, leader of the Disciples of Ragnos, and was very shortly after killed by a single Jedi Knight. A Jedi who had only been a Jedi for a year. Marka Ragnos, Dark Lord of the Sith, ruler of Korriban for over 100 years, one of the greatest warriors of the Sith, lost to a teenager who had only first held a lightsaber less than 12 months prior. This brings me to the real point of this video. Ragnos is an overrated, fraudulent bitch of a Sith whose fame is unearned and stolen from the real heroes of the so-called Golden Age of the Sith. One notable thing about Marka Ragnos is that we never actually see him while he was alive. No flashbacks, no holograms, nothing. All we know of him are mentions and old books. We know that he was able to conquer Korriban, but Ragnos wasn't leading those battles. He was likely resting in his palace, while the generals and soldiers of his armies planned out attacks against the enemy clans and conquered them all while Ragnos was away. Very few times in Star Wars do we ever see with the Bay Knight lineage of Sith the Master take care of anything. Typically it's the apprentice that does all the work. Darth Bane wouldn't be born for another several thousand years, but would it be unreasonable to assume that Ragnos didn't really do anything either? When it comes to combat prowess, all we know about Ragnos is that he had beheaded Simus, but that he also lost to a child after his resurrection. How powerful was Ragnos really? Was Ragnos an expert duelist who beat Simus in a long, tactical, purposeful duel? Or was Simus also really shit, and Ragnos just happened to have a really big sword and lucky aim? I don't believe we can believe anything about Marka Ragnos. With the political power he had, he could have told his scribes to write anything down that made him look good. He could have forged up or made up stories about himself and spread them along the masses to make him seem feared, when really he was nothing much at all. This, I believe, is seen best in what is considered to be the golden age of the Sith. Was this time period really the golden age of the Sith? Was Ragnos really that great of a leader that this was the best time the Sith had ever existed? Hell no! This time was defined by peace and stability, while the Sith stayed on Korriban and never did anything. The Sith Code lays out that the Sith always wished to seek out power and strength when the Sith barely had any on a galactic scale at the time. The only person who had that kind of power was Ragnos. Shortly after Ragnos' death, Naga Sadow, the new Dark Lord of the Sith, really showed off what the Sith could be doing to gain power and fought the entire Republic on their own. Please ignore what happened shortly after he did that, but even though Sadow is remembered for maybe not being the greatest Sith ever, he conquered! He was so powerful, he could convince millions that the Sith army was larger than it was through battle meditation. Do you know what kind of power that takes? Even after the war was lost, Sadow conquered Yavin 4 and made it his own, constructing massive pyramids in his honor. Sadow is a true Sith Lord and should be widely more accepted as an incredible leader of the Sith over Ragnos. Why isn't Sadow going around putting marks on people's heads he just met? If there really was a golden age of the Sith, it would be the reign of the Empire under Darth Sidious. The Sith ruled the galaxy and could really do whatever they wanted for 20 or so years. The Sith Empire under the Sith Triumvirate is also a strong contender with the galaxy in ruins and the Sith mostly extinct under the rule of Traya and Nihilus. I'd even say that the Sith Empire under Darth Vitiate was more of a golden age, with the Sith ruling half the galaxy and killing Jedi near constantly, compared to sitting alone on Korriban under Ragnos' rule. To summarize, Ragnos is a weak, frail, fraudulent, overconfident, sad ruler of the Sith, who would have led them into ruin, if not for his own death, and the spectacular follow-up that was the rule of Naga Sadow, who pulled the Sith out of these, made them into a galactic-wide threat, and made the Sith into what they truly needed to be. Sadow started the golden age of the Sith, not ended it. Ragnos should not be remembered, he should not be adored, and he should remain dead in his old decrepit sandy tomb on Korriban forever! Thank you for watching.